For 7 weeks, she was invisible, the quiet medical officer who treated SEAL candidates' injuries without saying much. They respected her professionalism but never questioned her background. She carried band-aids instead of bullets, treated scraped knees instead of taking lives, and looked like she'd faint at the sound of gunfire. Until one moment changed everything, and they realized the woman they'd been dismissing wasn't just support. She was Nightingale, a classified legend who'd led missions they didn't have clearance to know about. Before we dive into this incredible story, tell us in the comments which country you're watching from today. And if you believe that extraordinary capabilities often hide behind ordinary roles, hit that subscribe button to support our channel. We're honored to share these remarkable stories with you. They only knew her as ma'am or medic. Lieutenant Commander Rachel Sullivan had been assigned to the Naval Special Warfare Training Center for exactly 7 weeks. At 5 feet 7 inches with dark brown hair always pulled back in a regulation bun and sharp green eyes that seemed to notice everything while revealing nothing, she moved through her medical duties with professional efficiency that made her practically invisible. To the SEAL candidates and training staff, she was simply their assigned medical officer, competent, reliable, and completely unremarkable. The candidates knew her only by her formal title. Ma'am, when they needed to address her directly. Medic, when they talked about her among themselves. Or doc, in the casual way military personnel refer to medical staff. None of them had ever wondered about her background, her previous assignments, or what experiences had shaped her into the medical officer they saw every day. She was medical support, nothing more. Someone who kept them healthy enough to continue their brutal training regimen. Her interaction with the candidates was notably different from typical military medical personnel. Where most Navy medical officers developed casual rapport with the warriors they supported, Commander Sullivan maintained a professional distance that seemed almost civilian. She spoke softly, moved gently, and appeared genuinely uncomfortable with the aggressive culture that defined special operations training. Commander Sullivan's daily routine was predictable and professional. She arrived early, reviewed candidate medical files, attended training briefings to understand the day's evolution and potential injury risks, positioned herself strategically during training exercises, and provided immediate medical care when needed. Her competence was unquestioned, her professionalism was absolute, and her presence was taken for granted by everyone at the facility. Among the candidates was Gunnery Sergeant Michael Torres, a former Marine Corps Force reconnaissance operator who'd served multiple combat deployments before applying for SEAL training. Torres was respected by his fellow candidates for his tactical expertise and leadership abilities, but he shared the common assumption that medical personnel operated outside the warrior culture that defined special operations. Doc Sullivan knows her medical stuff, Torres had commented to his teammate during their 6th week. But she's probably the most reserved medical officer I've ever worked with. Professional as hell, but you never get any sense of who she actually is beyond the medical degree. Acts like she's never been around military operations before. But assumptions can be dangerous, especially when they're made about people whose true backgrounds remain carefully hidden. The situation that would change everything began during the 8th week of training, when Class 284 was scheduled for advanced marksmanship evaluation. This was a critical phase where candidates demonstrated shooting skills with various weapon systems under different conditions and stress levels, combined with close-quarters battle exercises. During a break in the morning training session, the facility received an unexpected visitor. Lieutenant Commander Jake Viper Morrison, a Navy helicopter pilot, had arrived to discuss air support procedures for upcoming training evolutions. Morrison was an experienced special operations pilot who'd flown countless missions supporting SEAL teams in combat environments. As Morrison walked through the training area, his attention was professional and routine until it reached the medical station where Commander Sullivan was organizing her equipment. Morrison stopped walking. His entire demeanor changed from casual professional assessment to something much more intense. Recognition mixed with what appeared to be genuine surprise and respect. Then, without warning, he snapped to rigid military attention and called out in a voice that carried clearly across the training area, "Nightingale." The single word hit the training facility like a thunderclap. Morrison's voice was filled with unmistakable recognition, respect, and something that sounded like awe. But more importantly, the word wasn't a name. It was clearly a military call sign, the kind of operational identifier used only in the most classified and dangerous military missions. Commander Sullivan looked up from her medical supplies, and for the first time since her assignment to the training facility, her professional composure cracked slightly. Her eyes met Morrison's, and something passed between them. A moment of recognition that suggested shared experiences and mutual respect that went far beyond routine military interactions. "Viper," she replied quietly, her voice carrying a warmth and familiarity that no one at the training facility had ever heard before. Morrison held his position of attention for several more seconds, then slowly relaxed into a less formal posture, but his expression remained filled with obvious respect and recognition. "Ma'am," Morrison said, "I had no idea you were assigned here. It's an honor to see you again." The candidates and instructors who had witnessed this exchange were trying to process what they'd seen. The reserved medical officer they'd known for weeks had just been recognized by an experienced special operations pilot, addressed by what was clearly an operational call sign, and treated with the kind of respect typically reserved for senior combat leaders. Torres, who'd been closest to the interaction, approached Commander Sullivan with obvious curiosity and respect. "Ma'am, that pilot seemed to recognize you from previous assignments. Have you two worked together before?" Commander Sullivan's response was carefully neutral. "Lieutenant Commander Morrison and I have crossed paths in previous assignments." But Morrison, still clearly impressed by the unexpected encounter, was less reserved about providing context. "Crossed paths," he said with obvious respect in his voice. "Ma'am, that's an understatement." Morrison looked around at the candidates and instructors who were listening to the conversation, then made a decision about how much information to share. "Gentlemen," Morrison said, "you've been working with one of the most decorated special operations officers in the Navy. Commander Sullivan isn't just medical support. She's someone who's led missions that most people don't have the clearance to know about." The revelation hit the training area like a physical blow. But before anyone could process this information further, Master Chief Petty Officer Davis, who had been overseeing the marksmanship training, noticed something alarming through his spotting scope. Movement in the treeline approximately 800 meters beyond the target arrays. Movement that definitely wasn't supposed to be there. Hold fire, Master Chief Davis announced immediately. "All candidates cease fire and make weapons safe. We have possible movement in the impact area." As Davis continued observing through his scope, the situation became more concerning. The movement was deliberate and human. Someone was definitely in an area where they had no authorization to be, and they appeared to be setting up some kind of position among the trees. "That's not a lost hiker," Davis announced grimly. "Someone is establishing a shooting position overlooking our range. We need to implement immediate threat protocols." The situation escalated rapidly when security personnel spotted a rifle scope glinting in the sunlight from the treeline position. The unknown individual wasn't just trespassing. They were armed and positioned to potentially engage personnel on the training range. "All personnel take immediate cover," Master Chief Davis ordered. "We have a confirmed armed threat in overwatch position. Implementing emergency protocols." The candidates and instructors immediately sought defensive positions around the range facilities while security forces prepared to respond to what was clearly a serious threat. But the sniper's position was expertly chosen: excellent concealment, multiple escape routes, and clear fields of fire over the entire training area. Commander Sullivan was positioned near the medical station when the threat was identified, relatively exposed to potential sniper fire from multiple angles. Standard protocol required her to seek immediate cover and wait for security forces to neutralize the threat. Instead, she did something that shocked everyone who witnessed it. Commander Sullivan moved deliberately toward the range equipment with the kind of calm purpose that suggested she knew exactly what she was doing. She didn't seek cover, didn't call for additional security, and didn't appear concerned about the armed threat overlooking their position. "Commander," Torres called out from his defensive position, "the protocol is to take cover until security neutralizes the threat." But Commander Sullivan continued moving toward the firing line, and her response revealed capabilities that none of them had suspected. "The protocol assumes that medical personnel are non-combatants who require protection," she replied without changing her deliberate advance. "That assumption doesn't apply here." Commander Sullivan approached the range equipment, and selected an M24 sniper rifle system that had been set up for candidate evaluation. She handled the weapon with the kind of familiarity that comes from extensive training and operational experience, checking the scope settings and ammunition with movements that were clearly automatic. Master Chief Davis, who had been coordinating the security response, stopped what he was doing to stare at Commander Sullivan. Her weapon handling was textbook perfect, the smooth, confident manipulation of someone who'd spent thousands of hours behind precision rifle systems. "Commander," Master Chief Davis said carefully, "what are you doing?" Commander Sullivan was now in a prone shooting position, the rifle steady and properly supported, her eye aligned with the scope in a stance that demonstrated extensive marksmanship training. "Eliminating a threat that's preventing our personnel from reaching secure positions," she replied calmly. The candidates and instructors who could observe Commander Sullivan from their defensive positions were trying to process what they were seeing. The gentle medical officer who'd been treating their scrapes and checking their blood pressure was now behind a sniper rifle, demonstrating technical proficiency that exceeded most military personnel they'd encountered. Rodriguez, who had been closest to Commander Sullivan's position, had a clear view of her preparation. Her breathing control was perfect, her body position was stable, and her scope work showed the kind of systematic precision that characterized expert marksmen. "Ma'am," Torres called out quietly, "do you need assistance with target identification?" Commander Sullivan's response was delivered without moving her position behind the rifle. "Target acquired. Adult male, camouflage position, 847 meters, armed with scoped rifle system. Clear threat to personnel safety." Master Chief Davis realized that Commander Sullivan was providing the kind of tactical assessment that came from extensive sniper training. Her range estimation was precise, her threat evaluation was professional, and her composure under pressure was exceptional. "Commander Sullivan," Master Chief Davis said, "what's your background with precision rifle systems?" "Previous assignments required specialized marksmanship capabilities," Commander Sullivan replied, without moving from her shooting position. "Request permission to engage threat." The entire range was silent except for the sound of wind through the equipment. 30 SEAL candidates, multiple instructors, and support personnel were waiting to see what would happen next. Master Chief Davis made the decision. "You have permission to engage." What happened next took approximately 3 seconds, but demonstrated marksmanship capabilities that exceeded those of most military personnel. Commander Sullivan's breathing pattern steadied. Her grip adjusted slightly for optimal control, and her trigger finger moved with the kind of smooth pressure that characterizes expert shooters. The rifle fired once. The sound echoed across the range with the sharp crack that characterizes high-velocity precision ammunition. Through his spotting scope, Master Chief Davis watched the target area 800 meters away. "Target down," Master Chief Davis announced. "Clean hit, threat neutralized." The armed individual who had been threatening the training facility was down, hit by a single precision shot from a distance that challenged even experienced snipers. Commander Sullivan had eliminated a serious threat with one shot under pressure conditions that would test any marksman. Commander Sullivan remained in position for several seconds, observing the target area through her scope to ensure the threat was completely neutralized. Then she made the rifle safe, checked that no additional threats were present, and finally moved from her shooting position. "Threat eliminated," she reported calmly into her radio. "One individual down at 847 meters. No additional contacts observed. Request security response for area clearance." The entire sequence had taken less than 5 minutes. An armed sniper who had been threatening multiple people from an expertly chosen position was now neutralized by a single precision shot. The training range was secure, all personnel were safe, and the immediate threat was eliminated. The range was completely silent. 30 SEAL candidates, multiple instructors, and support staff stood frozen, staring at a medical officer who had just demonstrated marksmanship capabilities that exceeded those of most military personnel they'd encountered. Morrison was the first to speak, and his voice was filled with the kind of recognition that comes from understanding exceptional capability. "That," Morrison said quietly, "is why they called her Nightingale. She didn't just rescue people. She fought her way through whatever was necessary to reach them." Torres approached Commander Sullivan with obvious respect and amazement. "Commander, where did you learn those techniques?" Commander Sullivan was conducting a post-engagement check of the rifle system while responding. Previous operational assignments required integration of medical and tactical capabilities. You can't rescue people in hostile territory if you can't neutralize threats that prevent you from reaching them. Jackson asked the question everyone was thinking. Commander, what kind of operations were you leading that required those capabilities? Commander Sullivan's answer provided insight into missions that most military personnel never encounter. Rescue operations in denied territory, medical evacuation under hostile fire, and personnel recovery missions where traditional support wasn't available. Sometimes medical personnel have to eliminate threats at long range to reach wounded soldiers. Master Chief Williams, who had witnessed the entire incident, understood that Commander Sullivan's demonstration had revealed capabilities that fundamentally changed her role at the training facility. Commander Sullivan, Williams said, I think it's time we discussed expanding your role here beyond standard medical support. Over the following weeks, Commander Sullivan transitioned from her cover role as routine medical support to active participation in training development. Her combination of medical expertise, tactical leadership experience, and precision marksmanship created training scenarios that were far more realistic and challenging than anything previously available. What we're developing, Master Chief Williams explained to the training staff, is integrated training that reflects the reality of modern special operations. Medical emergencies occur during tactical operations. Rescue missions require both medical and combat capabilities. These skills must be integrated, not separated. Commander Sullivan worked with the training staff to create scenarios that tested candidates' ability to provide medical care under hostile conditions, to conduct rescue operations when traditional support wasn't available, and to make tactical decisions that balanced medical requirements with mission success. The operations I led, Commander Sullivan explained to the candidates, required understanding that medical and tactical responsibilities aren't separate functions. When you're extracting wounded personnel from hostile territory, you're simultaneously a medic, a tactical leader, and a combat operator. Success depends on integrating all these capabilities seamlessly. Lieutenant Commander Morrison, who had triggered the revelation of Commander Sullivan's background, became a regular participant in the enhanced training programs. His helicopter support operations were integrated with Commander Sullivan's rescue scenarios, creating training that reflected the complex coordination required for actual special operations missions. Working with Nightingale again, Morrison told the candidates, reminds me why she was so effective as a team leader. She understood that successful operations require integration of all capabilities, medical, tactical, marksmanship, and leadership. The training programs that Commander Sullivan developed were eventually adopted throughout Special Operations Commands, establishing new standards for integrated medical tactical capability. Her methods influenced military training worldwide and enhanced the effectiveness of special operations personnel globally. But perhaps Commander Sullivan's greatest contribution was demonstrating that true operational excellence required integration of multiple capabilities rather than narrow specialization. Her experience leading classified rescue operations had provided insights that enhanced training for all special operations personnel. The story of Commander Nightingale Sullivan became legendary at the training facility, shared with new classes as an example of how extraordinary capabilities often hide behind ordinary professional roles. Her example reminded candidates that in special operations, the most valuable people are often those whose true experience and capabilities remain carefully hidden. The most important lesson you can learn here, instructors would tell new candidates, is that exceptional capability often comes in unexpected forms. The person providing medical support might be someone who's led missions more dangerous than anything you'll ever encounter and eliminated more threats than most combat personnel you'll ever meet. Years later, when Commander Sullivan transitioned to other assignments, her legacy lived on in the enhanced training programs she developed and in the understanding that true professional excellence often requires maintaining operational security about capabilities and experience. Her story reminded everyone that in special operations, as in life, the most dangerous assumptions are those we make about people who seem to fit perfectly into expected roles. Because the most exceptional people are often those who choose to hide their extraordinary capabilities behind ordinary professional responsibilities. Morrison's simple recognition of her call sign had lasted only seconds, but its impact continued for years, reminding everyone that extraordinary capabilities often hide behind the most ordinary appearances, and that the people we notice least may be the ones with the most important contributions to make. Have you ever discovered that someone you knew in a routine professional capacity actually possessed extraordinary experience or capabilities that they kept hidden? Tell us in the comments about the moments when you realized you'd been working alongside someone whose experience exceeded your own understanding. And if you believe that the most exceptional people are often those who don't need to advertise their capabilities, hit that subscribe button to support our channel. Every story reminds us that extraordinary abilities often hide behind ordinary professional roles. We'll see you in the next story where we'll discover another incredible tale of hidden expertise and unexpected revelation.